to become a team with me, and that's my interest in learning about this
Okay.
while we share babysitting the baby.
Sounds fun. How old is baby?
She's 9 months.
Yep.
I think she muted herself.
So yeah. Sounds cool. Heather or Diana, thoughts?
Well, I was out on medical leave for about a year, and I really lost all of my business. So now I'm in a position of having to start over. And if I had a team or at least one other person working with me, I wouldn't be in this position. So while I enjoyed working as a solo agent for the success of my business, if I'm going forward in real estate, it needs to be more than just me.
Got it. Welcome back, by the way.
Thank you.
Kate, I know you said you're at your
I
other
can go.
job.
Yeah, I can go. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, so I came into this job with the intent of always maximizing the business opportunity. While I love doing the work itself so far, from day zero, I've had building, a team and a full-fledged business in mind. And so it's similar to, I think it was Heather who it sounded like who was just talking, or somebody who was just speaking, this idea that I'm not only reliant on what I can do in a given day, but that every bit of time is maximized. So that's where I've always wanted to go with the team. I don't know how long it'll take me to get there because I just started, but that's where I've got my eyes set.
Cool. Heather, you want to go?
Yes, I'm driving. I'm almost there. So sorry. For me, I've actually been getting too busy to manage things by myself, and I need help. So I wanted to see, what options there are as far as growing in that way.
Cool. Amethyst, I know you already have a team, so I'm not going to ask that, but what is it that you want to learn from being here?
Well, I think I kind of came to you and said, hey, I think in our office when we start a team, you're a little kind of left to your own devices to figure it out. So I've asked for a class to, kind of the proper steps just to make sure we're on the up and up as far as more of the legal stuff and commission stuff too.
Yep. So
I know the MREA stuff, which you should be doing on that side, or when.
Yeah. So to her point, for those of you who, and I'm going to caveat and we'll go back, but there are actually formal steps that you have to take within the guidelines of the Market Center to be able to consider yourself a team and to formally start a team. So if you did not know that, we'll go over some of them here in a minute, but there are production guidelines, there are legal guidelines, there are commission guidelines, there are all these things, right? So some people don't know that we have that. We created it a very long time ago to keep people from on a whim creating something without the proper steps, of thought beforehand. So if you are looking to build a team here, there are rules that we have that are what we would consider best practices. Now you are an independent contractor, and yes, of course, with that comes freedom. But we also know that we have seen teams go well, and we've seen teams fail. And some of the reason behind creating these guidelines is so that we can prevent future folks from following in those footsteps of the failures. And we can give you some sort of structure for the things that you will need in the future. So if you don't know what those are, you could probably ask Shelby. She might have them, or Julie would be a person to go to as well. But there are some things to keep in mind we'll go to in a minute. The first question I kind of want all of you to answer for yourself is, when you think of a team, and you can answer it out loud if you want, or you can write it down, doesn't matter to me. But when you think of a team, what is it that you personally think of for yourself? If anyone wants to answer, go ahead. What does a team look like to you? I know Michelle said mother-daughter. Anybody else? Your idea of a team?
You mean in terms of members or?
Yeah, so what does it look like? Like when you close your eyes and you're dreaming of having a team, what does it look like to you right now? I know you won't know all of the ins and outs, But as of right now, like what you have in mind for what you want, what is it?
I think a team for me would look like someone or group of someone who's able to continue the business in my absence.
Okay. And in your short absence or long-term absence or both?
Both.
Okay. Anybody else want to share? What does the team mean to you?
I know I'd like to see an admin as well as I think several specialists, because I'm thinking of a team that's, you know, at least a dozen in size. I don't know, but and I know there are ways to specialize once you get that big. So I think that's where I'm going, but I don't know the details yet.
Okay. What did you say?
I said leverage.
In which ways?
You know, obviously as the person eventually starting a team or having a team, other people who are taking stuff off your plate so you can focus on kind of your 20% and then get to the point where you're really just focusing on your 5%.
Yeah. So for what she's speaking about in real estate in general, there's the 80-20 principle where 20% of your activities produce 80% of your results. So the 20% of your activities that will do that for you as a solo agent are going to be lead generation, lead follow-up. There's 5 of them. So lead gen, lead follow-up, going on appointments, script role play, and practicing your craft basically, and negotiating contracts. So as an agent by yourself, if you are not spending at least half of your day in one of those 5 things, you're not building your business as much as you probably could or should be, just being honest. A lot of the place where people get to where they want to build a team or want to start having help is because they have too much of the other stuff on their plate to be able to stay in those 5 activities. So if you're following the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, which is kind of the Bible, so to speak, here at Keller Williams, the first step is always going to be hiring an admin. A lot of people want right now, especially, they're like, well, I need another agent to help me with all these showings. And here's the cool thing is you can create your business however you want, right? Like you're an independent contractor, but these books and these processes were written off of the backs of like hundreds and thousands of people who have done it and built the wrong way and torn it down and built it back the right direction. So I will tell you that if you choose to go the other direction and do things out of line, like I did, you will spend years tearing apart everything you build to build it back the way that they always told you from the beginning. And you're more than welcome to ask. I'm 100,000% open about all the stuff I'm bad at and all the things I've failed in. So if you have questions, you can ask now or on Facebook later or whatever. But do yourself a favor and don't skip steps. So the first proper thing to do if you're thinking about the path of building a team, to be honest, is going to be thinking through what you want it to look like someday. Just thinking about it. You're not taking any action. Like close your eyes, write it out. Are you still in sales? Are you helping other people? Are you, what are you doing in 5 years? Or 3 years if you can't think that far out. I'm somebody who has a hard time with 5 years. But just honest, I'm like, I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years. Crap.
That's because you know what you want and then you just do it.
Well, and I'm like, in 5 years, my husband's going to be retiring and I'm not even going to live here. So like, I don't know. No, anyway, I digress. But first thing is thinking through what you want it to look like. And then the second step is to follow the proper first step as the way that it is taught here and taught here for a reason, which is hiring an administrative person. So wrong direction. You can't see her, but Chrisanne's sitting behind Amethyst. She's my person, right? So she wasn't my first hire. Wish she would have been. Would saved a lot of headache down the road, but she wasn't my first hire, but obviously my ability to continue to grow our team the way that you guys now know it is because of having a strong administrative person. So I'm going to ask for you to share, what does it look like when you have a big business and no strong like admin staff? Because you're in that right now.
Yeah, you're doing everything.
So what does that mean to them? Because I'll share with you guys, and I know she doesn't mind.
Yeah, no, I'm open.
She's like needing to do that at 100 transactions where she should have done it years ago.
I had a strong admin, but she kind of moved on to a different phase of her life. The thing is because I have agents under me and I'm still, for me, I want to ensure that, you know, I'm delivering the value I promised them.
Mhm.
So that means anything that I promised would not be on their plates, I have put on my own plate.
Be specific. So what does it mean if you muscle through it and do it without somebody, whether it's,
So
hey, they quit and I
basically-
don't have someone, or never hiring someone in the first place?
Right. So basically you're doing like everything, like, you know, like what, 127 transactions last year, or whatever it shook out to. I was like basically involved in every single one of those transactions,
Doing what?
doing like all the paperwork, all the TC work, listing agreements, going over closing disclosures, ordering closing gifts, you know, keeping all the bills paid. I don't
That
even
makes me
know.
want to stab my eyeballs out.
Like everything you do in a transaction, minus the showing of the houses, I was
So
doing.
you are your own
And
admin
writing
right
the
now?
offer. Sort of. I mean, I do have an admin, but she's not there as consistently
Yeah.
as sometimes I need.
Cool. Do you guys have any questions so far on what we're talking about? I don't want this to be a us talk at you guys and you just sit there and write notes. So what are you thinking from the conversation we're having?
I put it in the chat, but I ask, does the admin need to have a real estate license to be in that role? Because that is the goal for my daughter, is to be the admin in the beginning of the start of this team.
So when you say need to, I think an actual necessity. No, they don't have to. I will tell you, in the long run, it is much nicer to have someone who can literally do everything that you can do helping you.
Because it's just you and an admin. So like like what you're saying, like eventually, yes, you want them to have a license, because if it's literally, if you're writing with you and an admin, you can do a lot of transactions with you and an admin. Like
Yeah.
I would say easily 75 a year.
I bet you, like, because my husband asked me this a couple
Yeah.
years ago when I was honestly thinking about blowing the team up. Sorry, Chrisanne, but
Not in a good way.
not in a good way. He was like, if you had just a really awesome one or two admin in yourself, what could you do? And I said that I could do 100.
Yeah. So, and I would say for me, probably depending on how buyer seller
Yeah.
heavy you are, you know, I could do 100 if I was heavier on sellers, buyers probably
Yeah.
75. But like if it's just you and an admin, which, you know, realistically, if you have a well-oiled admin, you don't really need to hire an actual agent right away. You know, so if you want to go out of town and your admin's not licensed,
You can't go out of town.
yeah, because, you know, like, because a lot of admin who are licensed, they'll step in and do showings if it's like a week or two a year. Like I jokingly told Dina yesterday, I was like, you have taken more vacations in the last 3 weeks than most agents take in an entire year. And then Dina being Dina is just like, well, I'm also going to Florida next week.
Nashville.
But
Chrisanne,
I
and I'm
don't-
taking Chrisanne with me. We're both going to Nashville
Or
next week.
Nashville,
Yeah.
yes. But like on the flip side, me not having the admin leverage in place, I don't get to take vacations.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah, because there have been times where I've left or somebody's needed something, or like, let's say even me and Molly, who's the other prime agent on our team, if we're both gone, Chris Ann's licensed, she can go do whatever we can. I've had her go on listing appointments for me, not regularly. Keep in mind, your admin person is not going to want to do these things. It's actually going to make them very uncomfortable because they're not sales oriented. But in a pinch, if your admin is not licensed, you're kind of in a little bit of trouble, especially if you've got a big business going. Chris Ann was not licensed at first. She got her license, what, like a year in? How long were you? About a year? Yeah. So the other value proposition you could offer, I'd be very careful with doing it out of the gate, but somebody who's been with you for a while, you could offer to help them get licensed. The flip side of that, Michelle, is you should be paying a licensed administrative person a decent amount more than an unlicensed administrative person, because they can do more for you.
Okay, so with my daughter, she's in a 5-week program. She should be done with school in 5 weeks. In the meantime, when she doesn't have a real estate license, is there some kind of list that says what an admin can do?
On the
That
real estate commission
license?
website, yeah, on the real estate commission website, there is a full list of things that unlicensed administrative people cannot do.
And I think your biggest ones are like they can't negotiate, they can't show houses.
Yeah.
You know, they can like assign signatures on DocuSign, stuff like that.
Yeah, they can't talk about the ins and outs of offers with anybody. They can't be the point person for any type of conversation that requires repair negotiation. Honestly, the things that you would want them taking off your plate at a completely like at a high level, you can't do if you're not licensed. So like if Chris Ann being licensed, you guys, like this is how easy it is because she's licensed. I literally have a seller that says, we want to list with you. I say, perfect. Chris Ann's going to jump in. She's going to keep us on track until we get to the part where we're going on the market. I don't do anything else from there. I don't write the description. I don't type up my own listing agreements. I don't do anything. I don't put the sign in the yard. I don't go through repairs with anybody. I do nothing. 100% nothing, and I'm not afraid to say it.
And
She
she's
does all of
licensed or she's not licensed?
She is licensed. So she literally can have every conversation that needs to be had, and she does not have to bother me so that I can go out and get more listings, bring people onto the team, train people, whatever I need to do.
That's the goal with me and my daughter, for her to take on that role and still be able to do what a licensed real estate agent can do when she passes her exam.
Then you need to have her license, because without it, there's a lot of gray area. And can you fly by without it? For sure. It's not like you can't do anything and you're handcuffed. It's just for the things that you would need to have them do to be able to do 2 or 3 times the volume in business, they would need a license.
Well, in the next 90 days, until she passes her state and national and gets her license, can they make spreadsheets and keep up with that for me? Because that's where I'm getting so many leads. I'm having to do all of it, and it's kind of getting overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, as a rule of thumb, anything that's not talking to the general public or interacting with the general public, if she's just supporting you and no one knows she's even there, then most of that stuff they can do. Where you get into kind of a pinch is when they're dealing with other people. Does that make sense? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think because it's a short period till she's going to be licensed, like she can be in the background doing things to make your life easier.
Mm-hmm.
And the other way to look at it is like, if you have an unlicensed person even like doing stuff in like DocuSign and whatnot, like you don't want them typing stuff in because your license is being held accountable for somebody else. So I think there is a ton of stuff that an unlicensed person can do to make your life easier. But like Dina said, when you're leveling up, you know, you're gonna need it. But on like so many questions, so I wouldn't even overthink it.
Yeah.
Don't overthink it. Don't overstress it.
Just don't talk. What'd you say?
I'm an overthinker.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get in trouble either. I want to make sure I'm following all the steps correctly.
So then go to the commission website when we get off this call, or even now since you're on the computer, and look up the unlicensed assistant list. It'll tell you everything they can and can't do. But as a general rule of thumb, if she's not talking to the public or interacting with the public or anything with the public, most everything else she would be doing, she's fine. But double check it on that list as well.
Okay, thank you. I'll let someone else ask questions.
You're welcome. Does anybody else have a question up to this point?
I've got one.
Go ahead.
So general like pay rates, what is the range? I'm thinking in terms of like when that moment comes where you think it's about time to look at that step, and you have to look at your numbers and see if it even makes sense, or if you need to build your business further before making that hire. So what are we looking at for both a non-licensed and a licensed admin?
Yeah, so this is not my personal opinion. This is KW Professional Maps sponsored opinion, is that until an agent hits about 30 to 36 transactions or is trending for that on a 6-month period, you don't actually need an admin. What you need is better systems. So my first thing to you would say, are your systems the best they possibly can be? Do you have spreadsheets created? Do you have a contract to close process? Do you have checklists? Leverage the systems, because systems are always going to be cheaper than people. The most expensive thing you will have in a team is people. Like, I think that about $16,000 a month of my overhead is in people a month. So the most expensive thing you will ever do is hire a person. So when you're at that 3 per month for about 6 months, up until you get to that point, it's all, do I have the best systems that I can to function on my own at the highest degree? Now, once you either say, screw that rule and I'm going to do it my way, or you get to that point, my personal suggestion is that you look at whatever caliber of talent you want and find out where else would they be getting a job and compete with that pay rate. So what I mean by that is, we used to start people at $10 an hour. We no longer do that because we get $10 an hour worth of people. So currently we look at how do we compete with Starbucks and Target and the entry level higher service jobs in our local area. If you are working in Raleigh or in Southern Pines, your cost is going to be higher because the service jobs in those areas, they pay more. So my personal suggestion would be that you look at what's the caliber of thing you need done and what are other entry level positions at higher service companies paying. Most of the time you'll find somewhere between 12 and now it's almost closer to $14 an hour. And if they are licensed, I'd probably pay them another $1.50 on top of that. That's just my personal thing. What have you found for yours?
So I think this part, so my first hire was a transaction coordinator that I paid per transaction.
Yep.
And I don't think that was necessarily the wrong thing to do. My problem is that when I so say I was paying $300 a transaction, well, then it got to the point eventually.
That outweighs the cost of bringing
Right.
somebody
I
in.
could have brought somebody in, paid them $15, $16 an hour, had them do all the TC work, plus, given
Whatever
the
else,
production, I could have put some other task on their plate to help me out with. So my issue was, there's some months I'm paying $5,000 for a TC, which I shouldn't be, so.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thing. I think me personally, I think it's wise to start with the TC before you bring on somebody else. You can pay them by transaction. So if you don't have a closing, they don't get paid.
You don't pay anybody.
They're only working for the business you're giving them.
But they're not able to do the other things like run around and drop things off and pick up checks and whatever. So there's still a little restriction there, but it is a great place to start.
Right. So I personally think that's the best place to start before you bring on somebody to kind of join your world on what feels like maybe permanent basis, obviously anybody can leave at any time, but then I think once you get to that point where you're paying too much for a TC, you need to, think about either bringing somebody else on or what that looks like for your needs.
Yeah. And my other suggestion for anybody who's looking to bring somebody on permanently where they are paid whether you sell anything or not is to have at least 3 months of that salary saved in a separate account for a rainy day. Because if you're not consistently selling 3 or 4 a month minimum, and you bring someone on and you have 2 bad months and you have the overhead of an admin, your savings is going to be depleted. So if you're thinking that you're tracking for that for up to 6 months before you make that hire, I would get really clear on what you want them doing, very specific. Chris-Ann will tell you, if you have an admin that joins your team, the last thing they want is for it to be unclear on what they're doing because they are very much checklist type people or people pleaser type people, and they can't please a person that they don't know what they're looking for. So second thing would be to have 3 minimum months of that income stashed away. So if you do have a bad month or 2, you're not having to fire someone. The other thing to keep in mind is that you're taking, and this is my look at it, not everybody looks at it this way. I find that when I hire an admin, I'm taking on the responsibility of feeding their family. And when I look at it that way, we don't make the hire unless we have the money.
Right.
For months and months and months, because you're affecting someone's life by bringing them into your world. If you can't financially support them, you're also damaging their own family's finances.
Right. I keep 4 to 5 months of business expenses in an account at all times.
Yeah, we have that right now too. Anybody have questions on that part?
Hey, just thank you very much. That was really helpful. For the record, I know I'm super new and already jumping into this stuff. I'm going to go by the roadmap. I'm just asking all the questions so I can see. I'm one of those 5-year planners. So want to kind of see where I'm going, but thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's obviously a big first step. And to be honest, a lot of people make it too late. If you're trending for 6 months of 3 a month, and you're at your 6th month of hitting that 3 a month, you really need to start looking for somebody because you're about to get stuck. Just being honest. All right. So aside from pay, and I would say, like I said, probably $12 to $12.50 is the lowest I personally would pay anybody. And I also don't think for an entry-level admin, you need to be paying anybody any more than $15 or $16 an hour. I think that's a bit much. So that would be my range if you're looking for a range personally. Okay, so aside from what's happening after that, the one thing I want everybody to know and what Amethyst had questions about was what's the process of actually having a team and the behind the scenes and the creation of it and the legal of it and all of that. So I'm going to go into that real quick, but if you guys have other questions that you think of, just put them in the chat box. I have it open now so I can see them. A couple of things to keep in mind is that if you're going to employ people, a lot of people will say your first admin needs to be a 1099. That's okay, but you cannot legally tell a 1099 person what to do, end of story. You can't have expectations for them. You can't set work hours for them. You cannot set like metrics for them to meet. It is illegal in the eyes of the government because they are self-employed. Now, do people do it in this business all the time? Absolutely. But if they ever got in trouble and the actual Department of Labor found out about that, they could owe a lot of fees and a lot of back taxes for not paying payroll tax for people who should have been on payroll. So keep in mind, if you have somebody 1099, you need to check with the Department of State in North Carolina on what are the rules for what you can and can't require of them. We don't choose to 1099 anyone that we bring in as an admin because we have to be able to set expectations for them and tell them what to do. If you choose I want to actually create this as a business, like Kate was saying, the things that we had to do and every team here at the time had to do was we had to go and as the main agent, like if you want to have a business with a business checking account and an S Corp or an LLC and all that, this is the can of worms that you will be opening. The first thing you're going to have to do is hire an attorney, or you know how to do it yourself. Good for you. I have no clue. Hire an attorney to create some sort of an entity for you with the guidance of your accountant. If you don't have an accountant and you want to create a business, I would highly suggest you get one. It is like the last year I did this by myself, I owed the IRS $55,000 was the last check I wrote before I incorporated myself for taxes. It was very sickening. Since then, we've not had to pay any more than probably $3,000 in a year, in addition to like our payroll tax and stuff. So we are an S Corp. You might choose to be an LLC. I would have an attorney and an accountant hash all that out. I can't tell you what's best for you because that's not right of me to do without a license to do so. We chose an S Corp because of the tax ramifications of that. In order for the office to pay you as your S Corp so that your business can show income, you have to become a broker in charge and get a firm license from the state of North Carolina's Real Estate Commission. So when you actually choose to step into the world of creating a formal business, there is a lot of worms that come out of the can. And I never knew this because they didn't tell us. They just told us what we had to do and how to figure it out. But you do have to go to the commission and apply for a firm license and be able to be a broker in charge of that firm in order for the office to pay your firm.
And not Dina.
And not me. So like if the office is writing the checks to you personally, you are for tax liability a sole proprietor, meaning you are taxed at a higher rate than I am as a business. There are also things I can write off as a business that you cannot write off as an individual. So I'm going to take a time out. There's a lot to this conversation and I want to let y'all ask whatever questions you have so far. I know this is a lot. What do you got? Anybody in the room or on the computer?
You're just using Keller Williams as a franchise and you're the broker in charge of your own firm.
Correct.
Are you still, well, I guess you still are under Trish here then, right?
So there is a duly licensed form that you fill out saying that you are duly licensed with your firm and the Market Center.
Okay.
Now, something to keep in mind is provisional brokers cannot dual affiliate. We'll get into that can of worms in a minute. Another thing we didn't know that we had to undo and rename ourselves and go through all of that. And I say we, I meant she. So yeah, it was quite a mess. So yeah.
So the people that you hire in, right?
They're all under Trisha. No, they're not under my firm. They're under KW and Trisha. I'm the only person listed under my firm. So the only reason I have that is so I can be paid as my business account.
Okay, I got you.
I am not legally responsible as a broker in charge for anyone other than myself.
That's what I was curious how that works. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody on there? I know somebody unmuted.
I was just going to ask, so the accountant recommending the best entity for you aside, that aside, when we talk about, for those of us who are newer, but still would prefer to begin with the tax benefit, is there an option that doesn't require you to be a BIC and have the firm license, or is it that or sole proprietor as far as you know, when it comes to license rules?
I think it's just, isn't it just sole proprietor at that point? If you're not eligible to be a BIC, the only option you have is sole proprietor or hire a BIC to be able to create a firm. Okay. Yeah. So you are either sole proprietor or you have to hire a BIC to be able to create the firm and pay them as such.
Got it. Thanks.
Doesn't make any sense at all, but you technically could do that. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Other questions?
Yes.
What?
I was doing my course, T03, course licensing,
Mhm.
and saying that at some point you can have a real estate company without a big, but you have a broker or something else.
Broker in charge?
Bro, some kind of like substitute of broker in charge is not broker in charge, it's like different than.
I don't know.
He's taking the decision, that person, he's designated who is broker in charge. He's kind of a partner, broker or something. He's not a big, he's like a broker or something.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Are you talking about like when you're eligible to be a broker?
No, I'm saying, for example, somebody have some money, okay? And he puts somebody in the company, he's not a real estate agent, but he will designate somebody who will be a broker in charge of the company.
I do not know. I would say let's pause that, write it down, and I can find out for you. I have no clue.
I always find out what's the name of
Yeah.
the position.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to the question he asked, and I'm sure you couldn't hear it because you're way and he's way back there. So anyway, what else do you guys have before we move on from like the beginning of the can of worms you open when you want to be paid as a business instead of an individual?
Does it make sense to do that even as an individual agent? I mean,
I would have your accountant run the scenarios. For me, it did. I
Okay,
incorporated
that's what I've
before
heard.
I actually had a team because the last time I was ever going to write the government $55,000 was the only time I ever did it.
Yeah.
And whenever they ran the scenario, they said, if you were an S corp, here would be your tax bill. If you were still a sole proprietor, here would be your tax bill.
It's just like any other business.
Yeah.
It really is. And I've had plenty of those.
Yeah, and there are things that you can write off. I can write off as a company that you can't write off as an individual. So the amount that I'm able to write off is
You also
much
have
higher.
yourself a
Tax rate's
salary,
different.
correct?
Yeah, and then the other thing that is helping us tremendously is because I'm able to be a company in the eyes of the state, I am a W-2 employee of my company on a salary, meaning I am no longer self-employed for tax purposes.
Okay.
So the office, they get a closing, the office writes a check to DW Realty Inc. or whatever it is right now, because it had to change. And then that money comes into the business account every 2 weeks, just like they do. I get a check and I am a W-2 employee. The other thing it helps with, to be honest, is when I go to finance things and I have a W-2 instead of a self-employed tax return, I do not have to do all the stuff y'all have to do anymore. I'm like, here's my W-2, and they know it's verified and legit and taxes were paid. I don't have to jump through all the hoops when buying houses, cars, financing anything anymore.
That makes sense.
So if you can do it, I'd probably go talk to an accountant and an attorney to look at what would be the best option and how do you incorporate yourself. If you have been doing this for a while and you're still self-employed, you are spending way more money than you need to in taxes. Just saying.
But again, it's going to depend on how much you make every, there's a tipping point for that to
Mhm.
occur. So you gotta
Yeah, and they can
find
run, a good accountant can run the scenario and
Yeah.
say like, here's what you currently pay, here's what you would have paid if you were incorporated or LLC'd or whatever.
Right, because to incorporate yourself, you need like a certain amount of profit. Like you
Yep.
can't really incorporate yourself if you write everything off and show that you have no income.
Yep, and there's a whole bunch of stuff, and that's why I said have professional people. Like, can you do an incorporation on your own? Yeah, I really don't suggest it, especially if you don't know the legalities of what you're doing. The other thing that helps is that as I'm building a team, if someone sues my team, they are not suing me personally, and I am not personally liable with my personal assets for what anybody in my world does. So it's a lot of additional legal protection because of the fact that I had someone actually create it that way. I can also profit share with the team. So full disclosure, because Christine's been there so long, she now is on a profit share in addition to her salary so that she sees benefit in staying. And I can do that because I've got shares to offer in the company as a whole, like the actual thing. You will then have to go to the state and get an EIN number for tax purposes and all these other things that will come from doing this. So it's not as easy as it sounds, but in the long run, and especially if you're going to be in business for a long period of time, it's definitely necessary in my personal opinion.
So do you have more additional insurances that you need to purchase for your S-Corps?
We have liability insurance through the Hartford for things. And I actually know Trenton and Sheila were asking me about something that I didn't even know was a thing. The other thing we're looking at doing this year is what's called key man insurance. So if the key man, i.e. myself, dies, there's an insurance policy that pays out everyone on my team so that they can move on with their life and have income for a while. So there are different things you can do because you're a business that will help the people that are with you too.
So error and omissions, anything like that in addition to the firm outside of you?
No, because I'm not employee. I'm not the BIC of anybody else. If I was legally responsible for them, I probably would, but I'm not. My company's not responsible for them.
So you're still covered under
The office.
E&O because you're duly affiliated.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Additional questions on here? Someone said Ashish will help you with an LLC for about $250. Dang, I screwed that one up. Okay. So go to single source. You know how much Hutchins charges? $1,000. So there we go.
Yeah, Ashish did mine for you.
Go there first time.
Is there any one place that has all of this information within?
No, my friend, that's why Amethyst wanted me to teach this class.
Great. How about writing a book?
How about what?
Taking the steps and putting it in an organized way and present it as a book.
Would you like to do that? And I can just tell you all the things.
Oh, would I like to do it? No, you have the knowledge.
I know, I'll give you the knowledge. You
And Chris Ann is you just said Chris Ann is an excellent admin. She can do it, type it for you in sections.
She wouldn't be typing it for me, Diana should be typing it for you. Let's just be real here.
No, but you could present that to the whole Keller Williams.
I can, and I'll probably sell it to Trisha. So that's a good idea.
Trisha's too cheap.
Trisha wouldn't buy it. She'd be like, you just got to teach a class for free.
We wouldn't buy it.
That's true. All this is true. No, Diana, I'm joking with you because I just like to mess with people, but that is a really great idea. And a couple of these things are written down because we had to create this 5 years ago when Ruben was the team leader. So some of this is written, some of it is not. But I do agree that that's why Amethyst came to me is I know people want to do this, but they don't know what they're doing or the steps to take to do it. So I think it would be a great idea.
Or one of the reasons that I haven't, my admin is working and on 1099 is I have no clue how to do the other steps.
Yeah.
So part of the reason I hadn't brought somebody permanently-ish into my world was because I wanted to make sure I was paying them properly.
Yep. And you can do, in terms of pay, you can do, your accountant can run payroll for you. Most of them can. We use a service called Gusto, Gusto. It's an app, a service that honestly Keller Williams as a franchise promotes. So it's super easy. They can clock their hours. They will send them their W-2s for you. They can submit their stuff and you can run payroll online. It's really, really, really easy. You also can keep track of their anniversary dates if you want to celebrate how long people have been with you and that whole 9 yards. Gusto, Gusto. Even if you payroll yourself only, it's still a great option. Okay. The other thing to consider if you open the can of worms of creating a team and having an employee is that there is such a thing called payroll taxes. So you are not just paying them their $12 an hour times 40 hours a week. So everyone needs to be on the same page. If you W-2 someone, you have Social Security, you have unemployment you have to pay, you have disability and stuff on their behalf you have to pay. As a business owner, you have payroll taxes that you have to pay. So when you're budgeting all of this, please do not do what I did and just multiply it times however many hours they work. You'll be sorely upset when your bill comes in a couple grand higher every month than what you thought it was supposed to be. So if you actually want to hire someone formally, if you 1099 them, you don't have to do any of this stuff. That's why a lot of agents do that option. But legally, you actually cannot make someone do anything if they're on a 1099. So if you're actually wanting to do this the legal way, and you're going to be telling, now if you hire someone and say, do whatever you want, here's what I need you to do. And if you get to it, you get to it. If you don't, you don't. 1099 them all day long. If you want to be able to hold someone accountable and let them go because they didn't meet your expectations, technically you're supposed to have them as an employee, which means W-2. If you W-2 them, you have payroll taxes.
Because if they go file for unemployment
and you're not paying it, guess who's getting in trouble?
They're probably gonna get their unemployment too.
And they're going to get their unemployment, and guess who's paying the whole thing? That'd be you. And guess who's paying penalties? That'd be you. And guess who's probably going to get in enough trouble with the office, because now the office is in trouble for having unpaid people. It would be a mess if you got caught. So my suggestion is that although it's more expensive, you do it the right way, because in the long run, I don't lose sleep at night wondering about these things. And we had a girl who was there for a day. Charlene actually asked me if I had Googled her before I hired her. I told her no, I Googled her, and then we let her go the next day. Years ago, this was 3 years ago, and she just filed for unemployment against me last week. She worked there for less than 24 hours. Yeah, people are nuts, and you have to protect yourself. So my suggestion would be that
So were you set up properly then?
Yeah, we always have been.
Okay.
I'm scared to death of getting in trouble. So as my husband says, my safety Sam is always in my back pocket. So I'm not trying to get in trouble for anything. And I don't want to be like, did I do that? Because I forget everything.
So you're gonna have to go to like.
No, we sent it back and said she only worked here for 2 hours and was terminated for falling asleep on the job, and it went away. The other thing is we have had somebody that worked for us that then went and worked for someone else who filed for unemployment with that someone else, of which that company said no, she should be getting it from the signature group. So it ended up coming back to us, and we had to fight it as well. So there's things that if that happens to you, you're going to be in an oh crap moment if you're not paying payroll taxes and unemployment tax and all of that stuff. So if you 1099, is there an issue with firing? I'm going to tell you, Karen, to go look at what by the state law you can and cannot ask someone to do or expect of them for 1099. Now, some states are at will. You don't have to have a reason for letting them go, but if they can show in any way, an email, a text, or anything that you were expecting something of them that was not on that list, then they will win and you will be in trouble. And they will, like he said. So
You mean it is if it's not on the list that the state has as to what they can and cannot do? Or if it's not on the list of what the original agreement was between you?
You can't have an original agreement. That's the problem. So if you are 1099ing someone as an assistant, they're like, you cannot force them to come to meetings. You can't, there's a list on the state Department of Revenue.
Talking about the list versus what licensed versus unlicensed.
No, I'm talking about, I'm not talking licensed, unlicensed. I'm talking there's a list of things that you can and cannot ask of someone if they are a 1099
right.
part of your world. Some of which means you literally cannot tell them they have to show up at a certain time. You can't tell them that they have to do certain duties. You can't make them, they have to be able to set their own schedule and have their own expectations, because technically and legally they are self-employed.
That's like at KW, like the team meeting, it's
highly encouraged, but they cannot say expected.
Right, but Keller Williams-Fayetteville can never let you go because you didn't go to a team meeting because they could not fire you.
So with let's say an admin who has a 1099, under what circumstances can you let them go?
Anything that's not on that list, which is why I'm saying you need to go read that list and print it out and look at it. Because if for some, like what he was saying back there is, if I expected you to do something and I wrote down in an email or a text, I expect that you turn this in the next 24 hours, and you fire them because they didn't, and they go to the state and say, I was technically supposed to be a W-2 employee and now I want unemployment, you are going to lose. You will have to pay all of that. All the back taxes on the payroll tax, the whole thing, because you were acting as if they were employed when in fact they were not.
Wow.
So if you're going to open the can of a team, it is not as easy as saying, I like you, you like me, let's work together and be happy. I know that Amethyst is going to fire me from ever teaching a class again after this, but at least you're informed.
Dismantle her team.
Amethyst is going to submit an application and get her desk ready. It is very scary, yes, but it's obviously very serious. I'm not trying to freak y'all out or deter you. Having a team has been a wonderful thing for me, and I'm sure for Amethyst in a lot of ways, and everybody else here who has a formal team. But you do have to know that it is more than just saying, I think I like you, let's join forces. It is not as easy as we make it look after years of doing it. The building of it is very difficult. There's a lot that goes into it. And is it worth it? In my opinion, 1000% time after time, yes, every single time. But I like, to her point, she came and said, I think people don't actually understand and they want to build a team, but they don't know how to do it and what goes into the beginning of it. Can you share? So that's why we're here. So I hope I didn't freak anybody out other than Amethyst, who's feverishly on the state website back here, I think. What do you
No,
do?
I'm on Gusto.
Oh, you're on Gusto?
Gusto.
Anybody have questions or like holy crap moments or doubting yourself now, or let's just have an open conversation about this for the next 5 minutes. What are you thinking?
I feel like it'd be a huge problem, one, to find an accountant that's good, you know, because I've reached out to a couple of different people just to talk about changing from, you know, being individual. And it's like, they want to please you, and I want to know.
So I think the tough thing accountant wise is that you, and the attorney wise, is you have to fall in lines with the North Carolina Real Estate Commission. So until you're able to tell them exactly what you need and why you need it, they're going to suggest, well, this is how we always do it. Well, they're starting, you know, entities for, I don't know,
Dentists
you know,
or doctors or
Schmo's
whatever, yeah.
lawn care business, you know, that has no professional.
We use
licensing.
Teasley Ayers, Ayers, and Trenton and Sheila recommended them to us. I've loved them. They have saved me a lot of money. Now, having an accountant, yes, it is more expensive than going to H&R Block. I probably spend a couple $1,000s a year on an accountant, but at this point, I've not spent $55,000 in a year since then. So yeah, like I would say so.
That's like Nita's goal in life.
How low can my taxes go, girl? Yeah, without getting into the club with Donald Trump, how low can I get them? No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, yes. Anybody else?
Let's make America great again.
What'd you say?
Let's make America great again.
We're not going on a political discussion. You're about to get kicked out of the class. No, but any more thoughts on, like, are you doubting yourself? Are you thinking this is too much? Are you confused? Are you feverishly undoing all of the expectations with your current admin? Like, what's happening right now?
Question.
Yes.
How important to have an admin in person or to hire one from overseas?
So my personal suggestion would be, this is not my professional opinion, it's personal opinion for me. I don't want to have to run 5 counties over to drop off a lockbox or a sign. So my personal suggestion would be someone in person first. We do now have 3 virtual assistants who do things, but I would always want to have someone here plus that.
I think your first hire should be a real person.
I 100,000%
Virtual is not real, but I mean.
Because the whole point here is to give you your time back so you don't have to do all of those things, and they can't go do anything that will help you stay out of the car on errands if they're not here.
Because there are some TCs that you pay by the transaction that will run signs that they help with the list side. Like they have like kind of like a
a la carte.
Yeah. And there's ones that will do checks, you know, but really, you know, so there's, there are, you know, the prices go up though, but you get what you pay for. Like my time's valuable to me. A lot of times, like I tell the buyer's agent, take my lockbox, reset it.
Or take my combo box and keep it because it's not worth my $30 to go out there and get it. I'll buy a new one.
Yeah, like, you know, that's the stuff I think about. It's like a little parting gift. And the buyer's agents are always like really excited about it. I order them, but like 10 at a time.
On Amazon, right? They're like $10. I'm not going all the way to Pinehurst for a $10 lockbox. Are you crazy? Just have it.
There are good restaurants in Pinehurst.
So
Dina,
not there for food. Yes.
Dina, let me ask you a question then. Now, in my case, as I'm going over this, I realized why I didn't want a team, because I wasn't at the level of the requirements that it takes to have a team. But at the same time, working as a solo agent, I lost my momentum and I lost my business. Is there something that I could do in the meantime, that's sort of a middle ground, so that I'm not just completely isolated in business by myself? Is there something else I could do? Because
yeah, that's kind of where I think peer accountability partners come in, or like PC is obviously really good for that. Having a couple of people that you could call on if you're in a pinch to show a house or whatever, I would say form a core group of 1 or 2 people. Ideally, if they can live on separate sides of town, that'd be great, because then one person isn't driving all the way to help you out over there, but that's not really important. I would say if you weren't ready to take the leap to actually do the team part, but you still wanted assistance, I know I coach about 10 different agents in this country who pay someone $50 per showing when they can't go. It is 100%. You're doing this. I'm paying you $50. I will Venmo it to you. Go open this door. I've already scheduled it. And they do that for all kinds of stuff. I'll pay a teenager $15 to go run out 12 signs in a day. Or one guy I have pays his nephew who's 18 to go put out the open house signs prior to his open house. $15. You have no idea how much $15 is to a child. So
I had like a bunch of closing gifts to be picked up, and to be honest, I was just feeling really not motivated to go get them. And I put on the KW group, I'll pay someone $40 to run to Gates 4, and like 6 people messaged me.
yeah, like before Allie was actually making money on our team, I offered $300 to mow a lawn, and she went to go look at the lawn and said, never mind. So it was so bad. But there are people who will do it for you. You will be asked to financially compensate them, which that's only fair. But if you're looking for a more stable thing, I'd find 2 people who you guys can all, if you don't have the money for it, you just all share in responsibility of errands. Hey, I need this, and next week I'll go do something for you, or whatever. The kind of back in the day, you're bartering with people if you don't have the funds right now to do it, but you still want the people to help you or hold you accountable. That'd be my suggestion.
Okay.
Anybody else, or do you have anything off of that? Okay. Last couple of points before we all go, and I will do a part 2 of this since it seems like there's like scratching the surface. If you are creating a team, and I know for some of you this is a long time down the road, and you go through the trouble of incorporating yourself or whatever, this is what we had to find out the hard way, and had to literally go back and redo every piece of the incorporation that we ever did, which was really awful. We originally incorporated ourselves under the business name, The Signature Group Realty Team Incorporated. Okay. When we advertise as the Signature Group Realty Team and we have provisional brokers on our team, a provisional broker cannot be duly affiliated, like period, the end of story. So in the eyes of the Real Estate Commission, those people were duly affiliated with the Signature Group's actual legal entity and Keller Williams. So what made no sense to me at all, and still doesn't, was that in order for you to have a PB on your team, you have to not call yourself the same thing as your legal entity, and you have to file a DBA with the counties you work in for your team name. So we had to undo that. We had to change the name to DW Realty Incorporated, and then we had to file a DBA, which means doing business as, with Cumberland, Hope, Harnett, Moore County as DW Realty Incorporated, doing business as the Signature Group, because then there was no legal entity that those provisionals would be also affiliated with on top of Keller Williams. So make sure if you're going to call yourself something, you don't incorporate yourself as that name, because you guys by default, most of what you're going to get is provisionals at first.
Right, like Brian,
you can't afford it. Yeah, like you can't, there's no way around that. PBs are who is going to come to a team. Like, let's just be honest here. Now, at the point where you've been doing this for a while, you will have full brokers who come to you and want your help. But when you start, just don't do what we did. We didn't know it wasn't allowed. So we were like, yay, we're legal and everything's great. But that was not the case. So your legal entity name cannot be what you are DBAing if you are going to have provisional brokers working on that team. Okay. Second thing I would suggest for you, because this happened to me and I'm not going to get into it because I got in trouble, which I still don't think I should have, but we're just going to digress. You need to trademark your stuff if you don't want someone else in this market stealing your name. Okay? What I mean is there's someone in our marketplace who has the almost exact word for word name as me, and there is shit I can do about it.
Team name.
Team name. Her team name has duplicated mine with one word in the exception, and they're swapped. So we are the Signature Group Realty Team. She is the Signature Realty Group or something like that. The logos looked almost exactly the same at the beginning. I noticed it because there was a listing that was listed that was mine that expired that now was that team's. And a lot of people, when I posted it on Facebook, said, oh, wow, I thought she worked with you.
Yep.
Why that happened, I don't know, and I'm not getting into it because I actually ended up with an ethics violation for calling it out on Facebook, so don't do that. But my moral of my story here is if you have something that is trademarkable, go through the appropriate steps with an attorney to get your stuff trademarked if you're able to. Because if you don't, there is literally nothing you can do if someone comes in here and duplicates everything that you have created. Nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do.
The name as well?
So
There's
somebody-
only, the words are all in there the same. The last two are swapped. So we're the Signature Group Realty team. She's the Signature Realty Group team.
So basically,
Nobody in the public would know
somebody
that.
saw Dina crushing it, and rather than doing their own thing, they
Like
just
we are
copied.
TSG, she's TSRG. So like everything is almost exactly the same with very little indication that it is any different. People who know me, who know the team, who've worked here forever, thought she was on our team. I dimed her out on Facebook in a very nice way, I think. So I don't think I was actually, should have been in trouble, but I got in trouble for it. My moral here is if you have something trademarkable and you don't want it stolen, go trademark it the second you create it. Because if not, there's no recourse that you have over someone duplicating what you're doing. Okay?
So would it be better to pick up the phone and call them directly?
Oh, that didn't work.
That would have always been better, but it didn't work and it's not going to matter now. But my point is, don't want you to go through that if you have something.
Particular person didn't care.
No,
She probably pretty.
It doesn't matter.
She probably said you copied off her.
it's fine. We're not talking about it. I'm not getting in any more trouble over this from years ago. So I'm just saying, if you have something that you are like proud of and that's distinct and
And you spend money.
and you
on
spend
branding.
money on branding and like you're creating a reputation, which that person doesn't have the same type of reputation as me, please, please, please do yourself a favor and trademark yourself, because I could have federally sued the pants off of her if I had that. I did it, and now the attorney said, sorry, you can't do anything.
Oh,
You have no legal recourse here, and you can't even make her stop using your name. And I'm like, what? So any questions on that before we go? Other than, holy crap, how does that happen? Because I still don't know. If you answer that question, I'd be grateful for you. All right, y'all, this has been recorded. I'm going to have Shelby post it on the Facebook page or send it out to those of you who are here. If you have other questions and you just didn't answer them or didn't think about them on here, you all know how to find me on Facebook. Please ask. I do not mind helping.
thanks for
Two.
There will be a part 2, dun, 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 that you all want to attend. Such cliffhangers.
The lead.
Yeah. All right, you guys have a fantabulous week. If you need me, let me know.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.